Why Stoics say everything's out of control. This mindset ends worry. Let's start with a radical idea, one that might shake you a little. You're not in control of anything. Not the weather. Not your reputation. Not your body. Not even your next breath. Now, at first that sounds terrifying. But here's the twist. It's also the gateway to absolute inner peace. The Stoics, some of the most battle-tested philosophers in history, didn't just accept this truth, they relied on it. They built their entire psychological framework on the realization that everything is out of control, and therefore worry is pointless. This wasn't a theory for them. It was a survival tool. And in our world, this chaotic, fast, always-on, fear-fueled world, this mindset might be the most powerful technology of the soul we've forgotten how to use. Imagine this: you wake up tomorrow, check your phone, and you've been cancelled online. Or maybe you lost a huge client. Or worse, a friend betrayed you. What's your instinct? Panic, anger, frustration. Wishoo! You start spinning stories. Why me? How do I fix this? What will people think? But what if, instead of spiraling, you paused and reminded yourself, this was never in my control? Not other people's opinions, not their actions, not the outcome, just your response, just how you choose to meet the moment. That's the Stoic position. It's not passive, it's precise. And it's the first step to ending unnecessary suffering.
Click subscribe to this channel to get more topics you love.
Marcus Aurelius, the Roman emperor and philosopher, faced plagues, wars, betrayals, and the death of children. He had everything to lose, and he lost much of it. But in his private writings, he kept returning to one idea: there is a dividing line between what belongs to me and what doesn't. I must focus only on what is mine. That line, it's the mind. Your judgments, your principles, your actions. That's it. Everything else, fame, fortune, health, even love, is on loan from the universe. And when you cling to what you don't control, worry becomes your default setting. This is a complete inversion of how we're trained to think. From childhood, we're told to take charge, to make things happen, to control our destiny. And that's great until life punches you in the face. Your body gets sick. The market crashes. Someone you love walks away. And then what? If you built your peace on control, then every loss becomes a personal failure. But what if peace didn't depend on control at all? What if real peace came from surrender, not in a weak, defeated way, but in a wise, grounded way? That's what the Stoics realized, and that's what we can rediscover. Here's a question worth meditating on. What would your life feel like if you stopped trying to control what was never yours? Really think about that. How much energy are you spending trying to shape how others see you? How much of your anxiety comes from trying to predict the future, fix the past, or manage other people's emotions? The Stoic answer is clear: that's wasted motion. That's where worry breeds. But when you narrow your focus to what is truly yours, your choices, your values, your effort, everything else falls into place or fades into irrelevance. Now, this doesn't mean we become indifferent to the world. It means we become strategically detached. You still care, you still act, but you don't stake your happiness on the outcome. Like an archer aiming at a target, you draw the bow, you focus your breath, and you release the arrow. But once it leaves your hand, wind, movement, fate, those are no longer yours. If you miss, You don't rage at the wind. You go back and you refine your aim. That's emotional strength. That's mental resilience. That's what it means to be unshaken while everything else moves. This mindset isn't a retreat from responsibility, it's the highest form of it. Because when you accept that the world is out of control, you stop wasting time fighting the ocean and you start building a boat. You stop yelling at the storm and start mastering the wheel. The world is wild. People are unpredictable. Life is short. But your capacity to respond wisely, to act with courage, to love without attachment, that's where freedom lives. That's where the worry ends. And the Stoics didn't just think this, they lived it. They were emperors, exiles, slaves, generals, and teachers. Some lost everything. Some ruled everything. But they all agreed, peace doesn't come from control, it comes from clarity. So the next time something goes wrong, and it will ask yourself, was this ever mine to control? And if the answer is no, don't fight it. Free yourself from it. Let it pass. And return to what is yours, your reason, your virtue, your next move. That's the power. That's the path. That's why Stoics say everything is out of control, because when you stop chasing control, you start living. The freedom paradox. Why letting go of control makes you more powerful. It sounds like a contradiction, doesn't it? Letting go of control to become more powerful. We've been conditioned to believe that power comes from controlling outcomes, managing people, bending situations to our will. But the Stoics saw things differently. They saw that real power isn't about domination, it's about alignment. It's about knowing where your influence begins and where it ends. And in that awareness, in that self-mastery, lies a kind of power that most people never touch. Because most people are too busy trying to rearrange the world instead of rearranging themselves. Think of it like this. Imagine trying to control the wind. You could spend your whole life shouting at the sky, building walls, blaming the weather. Or you could learn to sail. Stoicism is the philosophy of sailing. It doesn't promise calm seas. It doesn't guarantee you'll reach every island you aim for. But it promises that you'll stay afloat, that you'll move with grace, and that you'll arrive with dignity no matter what. That's the paradox. When you give up trying to control the uncontrollable, you suddenly become immune to it. But you become agile. You become free. And that freedom is power. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "The impediment to action advances action, that what stands in the way becomes the way." That's not just poetic, it's deeply practical. Life throws obstacles in your path. The Stoic doesn't waste energy resenting those obstacles. They use them. They ask, what can I do here? Not how do I change this, but how do I respond, given what I cannot change? And in that shift from resistance to response, you stop being a victim of life and start becoming a participant in it. This is where most people miss the mark. They think letting go of control means giving up, but it's the opposite. It means focusing your energy where it actually matters. You stop trying to command the universe and instead command yourself. You stop trying to manage everyone's opinion and instead manage your own integrity. And slowly you become someone who can be trusted not just by others, but by yourself. That's real power. The person who doesn't need to control everything cannot be controlled by anything. But let's go deeper. Ask yourself, what part of your life are you gripping too tightly? And what would happen if you loosened your grip? Maybe it's a relationship, a goal, a self-image. Maybe it's an old wound you're trying to rewrite. The Stoics would ask, is that grip helping you live better? Or is it choking your freedom? Letting go doesn't mean you stop caring. It means you stop clinging. You stop tying your happiness to something fragile, fleeting, external. You still love, you still strive, you still show up, but you don't build your identity on sand. That's why the Stoic mindset is so liberating. When you realize how little you control, it doesn't make you passive, it makes you precise. You don't waste effort on illusions. You don't fight battles that can't be won. You direct your will where it matters. And that makes you dangerous in the best way, because you become untouchable. Not numb, not indifferent, but resilient. The world can't shake you because you've rooted yourself in something deeper than circumstance, your own reasoned choice. Let me give you something to reflect on. What if all your stress was coming from trying to control something you were never meant to? Think about that. The deadline you can't change, the person who won't change, the past you can't rewrite, the future you can't predict. Now imagine if you could just let it go, not out of laziness, but out of strength, because you've chosen to focus on the only thing that truly belongs to you, your mind, your attitude, your actions. That's the Stoic advantage. Let the world do what it will. You remain steady. And here's where the paradox becomes real. When you let go of needing to control everything, people trust you more. You're not reactive. You're not manipulative. You're present. When you stop trying to force a result, you often get better results because your effort is clean, your intent is pure, your energy isn't strangled by fear. That's not weakness. That's wisdom. And that's why the Stoics weren't cold or robotic. They were the most alive people in the room. Because they had nothing to fear. They had already let go. How to practice radical acceptance without giving up on your goals. There's a misunderstanding that often arises when people first encounter Stoicism or the idea of radical acceptance. They hear accept what you can't control and assume it means to stop striving, to stop dreaming, to stop caring. But that couldn't be further from the truth. The Stoics were not passive do-nothings. They were emperors, soldiers, statesmen, poets. They believed in excellence. They moved through life with purpose. But they paired that ambition with something deeper, an unshakable calm rooted in reality. They understood that you can pursue greatness without attaching your identity to the outcome. That's the true art, to accept everything, but never give up. Radical acceptance doesn't mean you stop setting goals. It means you stop suffering over them. You still wake up and train, build, create, speak, serve, but you do it from a place of clarity. You understand that the goal is not a promise. It's a direction, a compass, not a guarantee. But you pursue it because it's meaningful, not because it owes you something. And when life throws curveballs, and it will, you don't collapse. You adjust. You adapt. Because your peace was never tied to getting what you want. Your peace came from knowing you gave your best, regardless of what came back. This is where so many modern minds get trapped. We live in a culture obsessed with results. We measure our worth by performance, by metrics, by applause. And when we fall short, we don't just feel disappointed, we feel broken. But the Stoics would ask, did you act justly? Did you try wisely? Did you remain true to your principles? If the answer is yes, then the outcome is irrelevant. You've already succeeded. You've already won. That's what Marcus Aurelius meant when he wrote, "If you do the work with your hands, with justice, with self-control, with good sense, what more do you need?" Now, it's easy to nod along with that when things are going well. But what about when life breaks your heart? When you lose someone you love? When your dreams fall apart? When you fail publicly? That's when the idea of radical acceptance becomes not just a concept, but a test. Can you still stand tall when everything around you is collapsing? Can you still say, "This hurts, but it's not the end. This is not under my control, but how I meet it is"? That's the Stoic warrior spirit. It's not about suppressing pain. It's about holding steady in the middle of it. Here's something to reflect on. Are you chasing your goals with desperation or with discipline? Desperation clings. It says, "I must have this, or I'm nothing." But discipline says, "I'll give everything to this, and yet remain whole if it doesn't happen." That's the subtle power of acceptance. It frees you to act without fear. It lets you risk, create, and love more deeply because you're not held hostage by the results. You become more dangerous, not less, because you're not afraid to lose. You've already accepted that loss is part of the game. And so, ironically, you win more often. Because your energy is clean, your motives are pure. Radical acceptance is not resignation. It's realism. It's knowing that the world doesn't owe you success, but you owe yourself effort. It's understanding that you can't control fate, but you can control your character. And when you live like that, you become profoundly unshaken. You stop needing the world to bend to your will. You simply bend your will toward what matters and let the rest unfold as it will. So how do we practice this day by day? We begin by noticing where we resist reality, where we say, "This shouldn't be happening." And that phrase is a red flag. It's a sign we're fighting the truth. Instead, ask, "What is happening? And how can I meet this with wisdom?" That's acceptance in action. And it doesn't make you weak, it makes you unstoppable. Because you're no longer using your energy to fight what is. You're using it to create what could be. The unshakable self, becoming the calm inside the chaos. Imagine standing in the eye of a hurricane. Around you, everything is spinning, people are panicking, systems are collapsing, the future feels uncertain. But you are still. Not because you're numb, not because you're indifferent, but because you've built something inside yourself that the storm can't touch. That's the unshakable self. That's what the Stoics were after, not the illusion of control over the world, but mastery over one's own mind. And in a world addicted to noise, reaction, and chaos, this stillness becomes your superpower. The truth is, most people don't know who they are without the drama. They've never met themselves in silence. Their identity is built on external things, status, relationships, achievements, attention. So when those things wobble, and they always do, they wobble too. They lose their footing. They spiral. But the Stoic doesn't build on sand. They build on rock. And that rock is reason, virtue, and choice. No one can take that from you. Not bad luck, not betrayal, not even death. Because it was never outside you to begin with. To become calm inside the chaos, you have to train for it. Just like a body is strengthened through resistance, the mind is strengthened through challenge. Every setback, every insult, every failure is material for growth if you use it. Marcus Aurelius wrote, "You have power over your mind, not outside events." Realize this, and you will find strength. That sentence is more than a quote, it's an orientation. When you stop outsourcing your peace and bring it home to your own awareness, you become untouchable. But this doesn't happen by accident. It happens through practice, through catching yourself in the moment of reaction when someone says something cruel, when fear rises, when plans fall apart, and choosing not to be pulled in. Not because you suppress your emotions, but because you observe them. You create space between what happens and how you respond. That space is where freedom lives. That space is the citadel. And the more you cultivate it, the more you realize, I can be okay, even when things are not okay. So ask yourself, who am I when everything I rely on is taken away? What remains when all the noise is gone? That's the real you, not the curated version, not the one shaped by fear or praise, but the one who can sit in stillness and say, I am enough. That's the Stoic self. Grounded, clear, unmoved by flattery or hate. You don't need the world to calm down. You need to rise above it. And when you do, you don't just survive the chaos, you become the one who brings peace into it. That's why the Stoics say, everything's out of control. Because once you accept that, worry ends. You stop gripping. You start living fully, fearlessly, freely. Not because the world is safe, but because you are strong. This isn't philosophy as theory. This is philosophy as armor, as action, as life. Now go live it.